Whoop, I guess Bally's here.
Yeah.
Are you?
Hi, Bally.
Hello.
We have David. Hello, David. Hi there.
Hi, Bally. It's been a long time.
Good to have you on, David.
Well, I'm glad you're still doing these. I want to get leaderized.
Yes, I'm pleased you're here. That's fantastic. But we've
Yeah,
got John joining.
here I
Hi,
am.
Bally.
Good to see you, David. It's definitely been a while.
Yeah.
Definitely been some time, right? So we're gonna crack on. We've got John. We've got Hi, hope all's well.
Yeah, good. Thank you. And you, Bally?
Good, thank you. Hope you're keeping safe. Right, we're gonna go straight in. So we're on the hour. You've most of you have been here. We've got a few of you on already, so that's fantastic. Hi there, John. Good to see you.
Good morning, Bally, or afternoon. Sorry.
Yeah, good to see you. So I know it's early morning for David, and hey, we got Kathy in the house also today. It's been a while.
There we go.
Hey, Ivan.
Good morning, Bally.
Good morning, Kathy. Good morning, Ivan, or good afternoon, Ivan. Okay, we're going to crack on. So, this session is, hi there, Ivan. I can see you. Great to see you on camera.
Oh, hello.
So, we're gonna crack on. I'm gonna sh start with a very short clip, and we're going to draw on people's experience, and I'll work through, and I'll show you the process. So, I'll show you the clip. Then what we'll do, we'll move into the kind of underpinning sort of way of creating this, how this came about, and how you can apply it in your own structure. The idea behind today's session is very much that we're going to use an example, but I'd like us to share what people are doing. So it helps everybody else for those who are creating AI generated content. So I will be sharing the whole process today with you. I'll give you the handout. So, if you may adapt what you're already doing, or you may say, actually, this is completely new. I'm going to go ahead and use this. So I'll go through those steps with you. Often we see the final product, if you like, we see the final thing, but we don't really always know the steps that we need to take to actually produce something of that nature. So we're going to start with a very simple clip, and so we'll go through the clip. You can listen for the content because the content's relevant to AI, so it's helpful content. The content itself is the output. However, for the purpose of this session, I'm going to unpack how that was created. So that's kind of the underlying idea behind that. David, can you hear me clearly? Do I need to speak up? Is it all good? Yeah,
You're good.
cool. Fantastic. Okay, so make it interactive. There will be questions, what you're doing. Perhaps feel free to share. You can raise your hand. You can obviously share in the chat, sort of in the, you can share in the chat text. You can write in there, or like I said, raise your hand. You can unmute. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. So welcome for those of you who perhaps haven't seen for a while. So it's good to see you on today's Lead Rise session with myself, Bally Binning, on the 5th of August. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share. Okay, so let's do this now. And you're going to see a little clip, and I'll play the clip from the beginning. Okay.
Welcome to our bi-weekly session. Today we are discussing how to get out of the model's way. The core principle for delegating to a capable AI is simple. The more able the model, the less it needs your constant supervision. Brief it well, give it space, and only tighten control when evidence demands it. Principle 1. Start close to blank. Clear out the old instructions you built for weaker models. See what a capable model can do unaided. Much of that old scaffolding is now just dead weight. In practice, strip your custom prompts and skills back to near nothing to begin. Principle 2. Fix patterns, not slips. A single mistake is just a slip, so let it be. If it happens twice, that is a pattern. That is the time to add a rule. Re-add instructions only when you see repeated failure. Principle 3. Brief the outcome, not the steps. Define the destination, set the guardrails, and clarify the exit criteria. Once you have defined what finished looks like, let the model determine the best way to get there. Principle 4. Let it check its own work. Before you trust a model to run long tasks unwatched, give it built-in ways to verify its progress. This allows the model to catch its own mistakes before you ever see them. Principle 5. Design the job, do not babysit it. For significant tasks, build a flexible, multi-step process that can adapt. A well-designed, dynamic workflow is far more effective than manually supervising a single agent at every turn. Principle 6. Automate the repetition. If a task recurs, put it on a rhythm. Instead of relaunching processes by hand, set up a schedule or a cloud routine for maintenance tasks. Principle 7. Retire easy tests and make room to play. If a test is passed every time, it is no longer useful. Replace it with a harder challenge based on current struggles. Also keep unpressured time for experimentation, where hidden capabilities often surface. To remember one thing, manage your AI like a strong operator, not a junior. Define the outcome, allow room for the work, and only intervene when evidence requires it. Thank you for joining this session.
Okay, so that in essence is the very short version of the clip. And this has been adapted, if you like, from hi Richard, we've got Richard on, we've got Tom on. I hope you got to see the actual clip. So that's the end kind of product, if you like, from a talk, and I'll go through the talk components. So hopefully you managed to see that. Not sure what this is all about. Okay, that's okay. So I will share the clip. It was taken from Boris Cherny's talk. I'll give you the talk, and now I'm going to unpack how I went and produced this, right? So it's more about the process of how this was produced. I can give you the clip. So it's kind of getting us to think, if you like, in a way, sort of thinking of our own practice. How might I do something like this, right? So like I want to create an AI generated clip. So often we see these, like I said at the beginning, but we don't really see the steps, kind of what went on behind the scenes. Like, was it done in one interface? Were they jumping between different tools? So that's basically what we're going to unpack. And I'll share the clip with you, Tom, also because what Boris was talking about in that conversation was very much how the models changed and what we do now with the new version of the model. So it's an update to the model in Claude. So if you want the original talk, happy to share that with you. What I did there in this clip, I'll show you the process, the steps that I took. I hope that makes sense. So we're unpicking. Now we're going to go through the slides. So we'll have, so it's great to see you, Tom. So you may have missed that little clip, but I can also share that with you. So now what we're going to be doing, I'm going to go through some questions with you, thinking through these steps that we've kind of, I suppose, in a way, kind of for us to go through so that we can make it, we can apply some similar principles. We're going to use today as a way of sharing what you're doing and adapt. And the tool I've used, it was I used it second or third time, so you may not know about the particular kind of tool I used here, and I'll share at the end. There's a whole guide for everybody who's here. I'll share that with you, and I'll unpack what we did, right? So this is an expert talk. This was done by Boris Cherny, and it's what I've referred to here as a client-ready deck, right? So turning someone else's best thinking. So what I was looking at doing is, given, you know, I'm in this space, in this AI space, doing lots of research behind the scenes, looking into various talks, articles, all the sort of stuff that you'd imagine someone would need to in their field. So, you know, for those in leadership positions, you're going to be looking at changes in culture, things that how things are evolving, moving. So what we're looking to do here is we're turning someone else's best thinking or your own gathered research. So this will apply to all of us here. So when we're researching, into branded asset that your team can use. So it could be that you're handing, so your team can apply this. And I'll unpick this as we go through this particular way of thinking through whichever tool we're using, right? The tools change every month, the judgment doesn't. So that's kind of the premise, the direction we're taking our talk today. So what I'm asking you to think about is how do you think that was made? So before, I saw a short clip, it was AI generated. Any kind of any inclinations how that was created? Any ideas? Feel free to raise your hand. I will kind of, yes, Richard, you've raised your hand. So do you want to share perhaps how you think it was generated?
Sure, and this is very topical for me because you and I have talked quite a bit about the whole notion of AI stewardship and AI hygiene, which is largely what that video was about. You know, doing things like you mentioned, reverse engineering versus prompt engineering. But I've been working on creating scripts myself, which is usually the first place that you start. You go into Claude Code, you give it enough detail and information, perhaps some other artifacts that you already have from the knowledge base. You can link a folder, for example, and then you create a series of scripts. Once you've defined obviously what it is that you want to teach, it can be an individual one or it can be a series. That's kind of what I'm working on. And then the question is, do you bring it into 11 Labs or Synthesia to create an avatar to actually do the presentation? Maybe you have a better product. I think a lot of those products are not quite ready for like full screen visual, which is what I'm told that most of the avatar needs to be kind of reduced as a smaller picture, lower left frame, lower right frame, because the technology isn't there yet to effectively mimic how a human being would talk, the mouth, the eyes, all those components. So maybe you've solved that riddle, but that's kind of how I've always thought about doing it.
Oh, I think it's somebody needs to mute themselves. So we're just going to check who that is. I'm gonna, okay, so let me double check. If you're not muted, perhaps you can check. I'll mute. Okay, that's good. I think I may have covered it. If I haven't, then I'll, so mimicking tends to be some of the things. So I'll raise some of those points in this clip that you just saw. Wasn't quite, I'll go through some of the things that it didn't do well in the kind of final output, if you like, in the clip that I showed. You're right, kind of positioning the actual avatar. Sometimes they were coming in front of, they were hiding the text, or perhaps thinking about how do I create my slide deck so the avatar is positioned, and they would jump, right? So I wasn't able to do that, but I'll share what tool that I used also. So some names that we've just heard there, so you would have captured those. So now, how would you create something like this? And I think you've mentioned that, Richard, what you've been testing. So maybe somebody else. So if you've got so obviously we're looking at this particular conversation in reference to Boris Cherny's talk. I use one example. How are you creating perhaps you're not, perhaps you're considering that. Perhaps someone else other than Richard, who is, perhaps you can share. Ivan, what are you using and how are you creating your outputs in AI generated content?
You touch on a sore point here. This is an area that I've been exploring. Is probably a big word. I think dipping my toe in. When I have a few minutes, I actually play around with it a little bit, and I have to say, whilst it's intriguing, it's like Richard. The graphics aren't quite 100% there, and trying to position stuff in the right place. and have it look more like me. It's the learning curve is like this, you know. That said, if I look at like NotepadLM as an example, and I look at the podcast portion of that, that for me actually has a lot more value, and it's trying to take that and translate it into something that's a little more visual. But I haven't had the kahunas to actually go for it yet.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
Just
for
being
that.
totally honest here.
Yeah, and I think he's saying she agrees with Ivan. And which bit do you agree with what he's saying in terms of actually having a go? Key?
No, I was agreeing with the part where he said about it's a learning curve, and trying to get the photographs to look like you, like it's hard. Like, you can still tell that the material is AI generated. No matter how good the large language model is, you can still point it out.
Yeah, yeah. So if I wanted, I didn't in this particular example, I wasn't sort of thinking about cloning my own voice here. 11 Labs, of course, we've got tools that can do that. I was just looking to create an avatar that could perhaps be an intern that would deliver the talk, the output. So you're absolutely right. So, if you're looking at something that represents us, the mimicking, there are tools, they're getting better, for sure. Ivan, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say it does raise a question though, when you look at your business, it's actually it does, and the question that I just popped in my head now is, does the avatar have to look like me? And it's just a question. Well, why does it have to look like me? Maybe it can just be a thing a talking head. Maybe that's something I should maybe just reconsider. A talking head gets the message across, though, because that's what we're really doing here. And the message is, here's an idea, or here's a something, and if you want to purchase it, well, come to me.
Absolutely. So that's actually, yeah, does it have to be us? No, not necessarily. You would have someone helping you. People have people, I know so many firms that actually have a whole social media team running that part of it. They're not the face of the business necessarily. Often with solo entrepreneurs, we feel we have to be at the forefront. So it's the messaging. Does it? That's a question, right, that we would answer ourselves. So in most cases, the avatars don't mimic us. Yeah, that's the thing, right? So we want the avatar to mimic as much as possible us, and that's where the checking comes in, right? So the judgment kind of we bring in for sure. So yeah, it's a good way of thinking about it, because there are different avatars, of course, we can pick from. You can, if you're using any AI tool, we've got voices that, that perhaps resonate, others don't. We just want to change it, right? Immediately. You're like, oh no, I don't really want this voice. I don't want to converse with an AI that speaks in this manner. Now, if we go to NotebookLM and you create the video generation, it's the same pair, right? It's the same the voice that we have, right? So we've got sort of used to hearing a lot of podcasts being generated using NotebookLM. So I'll continue with the slides, and of course I'll share, as I said, in terms of let me just double check. Am I sharing? Let me just double check that I'm actually sharing my it's not allowing me to. Let me just double check. Why is it not allowing me to share? So I'll get my slides. Have I frozen on my slides? Can you see my slides? Let me know.
Yes.
You can. Okay. Thank you. So what we're looking at here is, so in this example, I was using a YouTube clip that Boris Cherney, head of Code, Claude, put together to generate the principles. I used his principles to kind of have the layout, as you said, rightly so, Richard, to kind of go through those principles. I I apply that. So what did I do? I looked at how do I create something like this? I used an example. I went, thought, okay, which expert shall I draw on? So this could be for us, it would be pieces of research, could be data that you've captured, insights from experts that you trust, right? So at the end, it's always our judgment that comes to core. So it's the choice that we make. In this specific example, for the purpose of this, I used one example. Normally, what I tend to do is I synthesize the research, look at how do I capture that data? Are these experts, are they credible? I would triangulate, capture the insights from that individual. So that's kind of where I would start. So I'd start with, would I start with that? Well, actually, I'd go to the first thing. Where does the idea start? Where does an idea start for you? How do you capture it, one place or scattered? So, for example, when you're creating content, where does that idea come from, right? What is it that we're thinking about when we're thinking of producing, where, whether it's when we're creating content, for example, but where does that idea come from? What's it generated from? Tom's here, does a lot of work out, you will be looking at various ideas. So I'm looking at one idea because I was thinking in that way. How do you then synthesize it? How do you move from raw material to something coherent and usable? So we've got the idea, we've got, say, a problem we're trying to resolve, or we're putting forward a concept to our team members, and then we're synthesizing, we're being diligent, we're doing the research, then we're creating the material that's going to be usable. Which tools? We had Richard also mention 11 Labs. The one that we've spoken about a few times here is Perplexity AI, something for video, of course. Now, the one I used today was used from Google, right? So I became one of my go-to AI tools right from the start was Google Studio. And now what we're able to do in Google is to actually create the slide deck. And so that's where the output came from today. So so it's in Flow, what's already in Flow. So think about what you're using and what tool. So I would always ask the question, who's it for? So often we have the answers like, oh, it's for leaders or it's my audience. So when we kind of hone in and really think through this person with this problem or this particular morning, so we go in, we hone in on that specific issue. So rest of the choices make themselves. So I think once we can identify that, rather than keeping it generic, we can really hone in. The more precise, we can picture that one person reading this, the more useful every decision becomes. So this, when I was putting this together, I was thinking of, okay, when we're thinking of the output, what decisions, what processes, what steps would be needed? So often we hear, okay, I'm creating this for my audience. Well, let's narrow that down. What's their problem? What is it that they're going to be wanting that for specifically in this instance? So it could be for our team. So in this instance, one source or many is what you're building on, is it worth putting your name on? So we have one expert, single deep source, distilled and shaped by your perspective and framing. So I honed in on one particular talk. I shared this with a couple of people as I was going through this because we weren't getting the outputs using Claude. And I was like, okay, what's going on? So immediately, once we had this new model come out, I then wanted to know what are the experts saying and what's happening, what's shifted. And so hence started looking into this and I thought, well, okay, why don't I use this as an example of creating an AI content, AI video blend. So a research blend could be data, several voices woven together with your obviously editorial judgment. That's the key. Either way, the judgment is the same. Do you stand behind it? So I think this thing, the piece of what gets missed, because there's so much information out there at the moment, is so this is kind of the steps that I work through is we've got, we're thinking of an idea, we've got raw input, an hour of an expert's talk. In this example was an hour of an expert's talk. Then I was thinking, how do I keep six ideas, keep six ideas and discard the rest? So which do I keep and what do I reject in my kind of research. If you know, we often do this a lot of the time. So how do we then decipher what's relevant, what's not? So I'm thinking back at the problem. What am I trying to do? Well, people are having issues using Claude. How can I make it so that it kind of lands? An expert, it comes from the expert. This is kind of what, you know, they're the creators, right? So I'm going to credit their work. Maybe there's 6 ideas worth keeping. Your job isn't to capture everything, it's to find the single and let the rest go. So that's really the thing, right? The more we're using AIs, a lot of it's going to be noise to signal. We hear this a lot. How do we then decipher what's needed, what's not? So extraction is a decision. It's not transcript. We don't put the whole transcript. What we do, we can learn how to mine the transcripts. We can decide how we're going to extract, but we're using so ruthless editing. We've got those in sort of this field that would obviously be thinking very carefully about how they're using applying this. So what I tend to do is what should it look and feel like? So what I've ended up doing is keeping the branding. So if you haven't already, use Claude Design to actually have your assets, and you can build an asset deck using Claude Design. So that can be used as in the interface in Claude. So it understands the way you then your branding, the font size, the color, etc. So this is just an example that at the top. What should it look like and how should it feel? Brand is a choice you make up front. It's not something that you coat of paint at the end. More than color, it's the structure you bring, the foundation that holds every piece of content together, the format. So it's looking at top-down leadership first. So in this instance, how was I thinking through this? I was thinking through the branding. Then I was using Minto principles. So I want to make sure the format is applying the same principles. So underneath all this, there are different nuances that sit. And so for yours, your structure may be different. How you create perhaps content, perhaps slides for your team members may somewhat differ. So name it before you build, not afterwards. So have that process in thought. So what I'm doing here is I'm picking the few things that kind of get missed behind the scenes. So we honor the source. So you're standing on someone else's work. So we represent them accurately. And I think what we're seeing at the moment is not always the case. We're seeing there's, represent them accurately. So not to distort what they're meaning, what they were conveying. And this is a skill in itself. So credit them clearly. Make attribution visible and generous, not buried in sort of footnotes, but acknowledging individuals. Never put words in their mouth. Trust is the whole game. One misinterpretation can undo everything at that stage. So what must they walk away? So what can they do by the end of it? Distill every point. Is it something that they can act on? So for example, if we're thinking, so why do we bring this? But they can do something with it. So for the purpose of having so much content out there, what's the point if they can't take action and take that away and distill it and apply it? So if it's for your team members, if they can't do something by Friday, it hasn't been distilled enough. So action is the measure, not comprehension, not appreciation. That's the key thing. So the tools are just the instrument. I think I just want to get that to hone in on. Build the deck, so exporting it, turning it into a video. That's the mechanics. Those are things we can use. Those are the mechanics, but the learnable, interchangeable are the things that you'll kind of have and adapt. So we ask ourselves, who's it for? Is it for our team? Is it for social media content? Who is this going to be for? What problem are we solving? One source or many? Are we using, how many resources? Are we using data? Has it been triangulated? What matters? What do we keep? What do we dismiss? What about the look and feel of that? Does it feel and represent our brand? And are we honoring and crediting the sources? And what can they do at the end of it? So once you've done something of that nature, what you do is those are 6 kind of protocols, if you like. There's no tool that we're discussing here, could be done through various AI tools. What we then do is build that into a skill, right? So that's the skill. You go through this process for yourself, right? Go through what that might look like. So maybe you've got, and maybe it's one specific problem, but maybe that's the bit that is forked off, but the rest of it, the format can be built into a skill. So this is kind of a few steps. Which of these do you like thinking about what we've spoken about here? So I've shifted the delivery of things a little bit. So getting us to think through that, sort of turned it around a little bit. We've got the kind of, you know, final output, which is the clip or the insights from Claude Code and, you know, the kind of developer of code, Boris Cherny. And I've created the video looking at the 7 principles. I've gone through that. And then I've just said, how do I then present that in a way that it lands with my audience? So I've kind of taken a slightly different angle. If you caught that, then hopefully you can go through this yourself, and I'll go through the various steps, and I'll show you the handout in a moment. And I just want to see what steps individuals are taking at the moment. How are they going through the process? So just to kind of share, and it becomes a platform that it's not just me. We're all learning here. So that's what I, you know, the whole intention of these bi-weekly sessions. If we've got a volunteer, someone that's already doing it, I know Tom's putting a lot of content out there, so it'd be great to hear perhaps Tom from you, and maybe you can say a little bit about yourself and what you're doing, and share what that process how is it similar, dissimilar to what I've just mentioned here?
Hey, Bally, and everybody, great to see you all. I love what you're teaching right now because this is something I really need to learn. I've been wanting to learn, even going back a couple of years, probably even before I started using AI. Although I have used Claude to create certain images and so on, and I'd used Canva, you know, in past years, but now it's just amazing. But I had sort of dropped, you know, backed away from the challenge and done more mastermind discussion style teaching and webinars and master classes and stuff like that. But I really want to learn what you're teaching. But I did launch a private membership group a few months ago, realizing that a lot of people want to learn how to write press releases and get very specific. You move from vagueness to specificity, as I say, in terms of who are the journalists who would be a good fit for me to pitch my story and get me the media coverage that I wish for. And so I've been teaching that. And my plan and my vision, which I've communicated to a handful of people, you know, who are currently in this group, is to say, you know, each month has a theme, kind of as Tony Robbins teaches with, you probably remember the success cycle, mindset, plan, action, results, and then it either reinforces it or it puts you on that downward spiral. And so that's what I would love to create. But as far as actually creating it so far, I'm kind of at a gap that I'd love to take that leap. So I appreciate what you're teaching.
Fantastic. Yeah, brilliant. That's great. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Ivan, do you want to say what you've been doing?
Yeah, so the whole journey of AI is actually I second Tom's sentiment here, you know, being part of this group has actually been invaluable, as words I would use. And also it gets you to think a little, you know. So I wrote a book a while back, you know, called The Co-Founder's Code, right? And when I first wrote it, it was called the Business Partnership Blueprint, right? So what I did is I had this principle in my head. I used AI to kind of take these jumbled thoughts, turn them into something practical. And I came up with a book, and it wasn't really a book. It was more of a how-to guide, you know, paint by numbers, step 1, 2, 3, 4, and all the rest of it. And then as we've progressed, you know, through ChatGPT and Claude and a whole bunch of other things, you experiment, and then slowly you start to go, oh, okay, I see how this works now. And you kind of put yourself into it. one chap actually said something. He said, "What? Um, own the playbook, rent the tech." Okay, so I went, aha, yeah, I've got that. So now I have loads of documents. I used to use Evernote. I use Joplin now, where I just have a standard document which says avatar, standard document that, and then over time, I've taken this and turned it into a book. And then the book has some worksheets, which is kind of cool and helpful. And I'm at the stage now, so I've created a whole website and I can sell it online, all the standard stuff with this particular book. This has been my learning curve. And there's downloads and all sorts of stuff. And that led me on to write another book, which I was much more professional, much more focused and clear about. And that's actually a book, right? Now, I'm in the process of actually putting it into a form where a video and a newsletter and the promotional stuff that drops out of it, I'm using AI to kind of generate that stuff. And I have to say, part of me is like gung-ho, rah, rah, we're going to Wild West it. And then the other part of me is like, oh, shit, got to be careful here just in case. So I'm kind of torn. So your one slide where it goes, with the various steps and then says, and this is a skill, that is priceless. That's just kind of, that was, how you have aha moments? That was an aha moment for moi. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, because we're doing the work, aren't we? What we're doing is we're I always say, why go back to first principles? Because we've done the work, and we can then generate the skill. We can test the skill. There's things that we may not be applicable. There might be things that we can obviously adapt and iterate if you find, we can update the skills. That's the beauty of it. It stays there. And so when we're going through any processes, for example, even today with what I was doing, I then created a skill and going through that process. And so I may go back and clean it up. I will test it out. So, I apply that. The structure, the Minto pyramid structure in the layout for structuring sort of decks, slide deck has been priceless because it knows it kind of it's able to apply that. So we've got Richard raising his hand. Richard, love you to share.
Yeah, no, this has been fantastic. Obviously, we're all so blessed to be in this community, and yeah, certainly the video from Boris Chern that he released last week was a real eye opener, because it said, yeah, the habits I think that we're headed towards is building our skills, and I know I'm guilty of this, or whatever the term is, of iterating those skills to the point where there are thousands of lines. And kind of like code, you get to a point where is it really like Christmas tree lighting in construct? Back in the old database days, we used to build DTS packages with Microsoft SQL that could look like just as expansive spaghetti. So, and that's the concern that I think you addressed early on. And what Boris said with Opus is that you should throw out all your skills, essentially, start over, and let Opus really write the construct of the skills. I'm saying that because it obviously this process probably starts with a conversation and co-work, because you're talking about developing a presentation and going from there. I've been a little reluctant to use video other than my own ugly face, because interestingly enough, the digital marketers say that like a handheld video showing yourself, I'm saying myself, not yourself, because you're obviously much more presentable than I am, but just showing that is more authentic in its grittiness and its humanness and mistakes than a highly produced video. Those aren't getting the looks and the likes anymore on social media and YouTube. I'm not saying that to be a counter to this. Where I look at this now is I think for training purposes, it is ideal. And, Tom and I and another person, we're actually creating this online course for fiction writers. I'm a published fiction author. I've been in a community, so I'm kind of handling the mechanics, or as you've now described, it's the process first, then the tools. In this case, we'll probably use Claude, simply because it's, at this point, it's the right choice. But everything that you laid out in like those 6 steps, that's the more important thing than the instrument. And that's kind of how we went about designing this course. So I teach people how to use AI to subsidize their own creativity. We have another person who's an expert at bringing that book, kind of to market, which, writing a book and publishing a book are 2 distinct animals. And then Tom is our third leg, with his genius beyond PR and his incredible Rolodex of people to get that out there. So we're kind of building this out, but we also toggle between, we want to ultimately create something that kind of runs on autopilot, inside a community. We don't want to be doing this live. And the question is, do we do it live in Evergreen, or do we do what's happening more and more with probably less with courses, but more with training, and that's using avatar led kind of coursework, where perhaps you build in like a clone or a chatbot so that a person could stop the video and then ask the chatbot a question that's within the construct or within the scaffolding of whatever the course is on. So these are kind of the things that we're thinking about. You don't want to lose the human part of it, but at the same time, you don't want to be doing a course every week live. You want to figure out how to do it evergreen. But the challenge with doing it evergreen is it isn't live. So how do you manage Q&A? But my thinking is, a chatbot that's locked into all 3 of us. And we do plan to do like weekly live calls, within the community. But ultimately, we're thinking about how do we make this a totally evergreen product and still combine elements inside a community that has still the live aspects. So sorry to take up so much time, but this really triggered a lot of, I think, really good thoughts around that.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is more of a hybrid approach. So if there's training, people can access the training, and then you've got the chatbot answering some of the actual questions as they arise, and then you've got the human. So I think there's going to be more of a shift towards the hybrid way. Certainly for learning for individuals, there will be that type. So it's content. You've got an AI delivering content, and then you've got the instructor. I can see this. We're already seeing this, right? I've seen this in recruitment where you have,
Yeah.
I've seen this in recruitment also where you have AI come on and they screen you and they'll say, this is the process. And then they'll take you to the actual interviewer at that point. So they will have an AI initially, and that's kind of the bridge.
Yeah, I've actually cycled through some of those interviews. They can be kind of annoying because a lot of the, if you don't govern the AI, a lot of the questions become redundant. And, when you're taking an interview and you're getting this kind of feeling that these questions aren't really germane to really what's necessary to evaluate whether I have the certification or the qualifications for it. So I agree with you that's been a really popular use case, but I also caveat by saying you still need a human to certify the results, and unfortunately, that's not always the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we're hearing more of, we need those individuals, we need those experts. Without that, where it's it becomes too generic and actually becomes a tick box type of thing, right? So we'll continue. I'll go through the handout and we'll go through some of the steps, and I'll show you exactly what I did. I went in, I used the process. In fact, What I did do is I simply use, what did I do? I'm just see if I can get my document. Sorry, just going to stop for a moment because my document's disappeared. I'm going to grab it from here and then I'll show you the actual pipeline, because often that's the thing, right? Because we can adapt it, we can reject it. I always say, it really is a choice. Some people feel comfortable doing AI videos, that type of thing. And I wanted to raise this as a conversation as well, right? For everybody to think about. It might be the direction we go from an expert talk. So we've already gone through some of these steps, right? So who's it? So going through judgment, decide before you touch a tool. I think that's the thing, right? So we go through the thought process, right? Name one person, one problem, everything else is downstream, is decided here. Is this a source worth keeping? Pick an expert, like we've spoken about. In this example, as you saw, I'll share this actually with you also. Boris Cherney, head of Claude Code, and I've just shared the link. So for those of you who want to see that, I think it's a half an hour conversation, definitely worth having a look at. What actually matters. I've pulled out some of the principles. What should it look like? So I put the branding component in here. And then I put you must be able to. So exactly what I did, I went and draft the content in clear language, write the ideas as you'd say them to a client, and then the short principles, so jargon stripped. That became the slide deck, if you like. Well, actually, there was a few things I actually did before that. I went in and I cleaned out, I looked at the text and look through which are the principles. So I actually use the same approach that he talks through in his actual in the clip that I've just shared with you. Now my Gamma actual connection is set up, so I don't have to leave the interface in Claude Code. Everything's done there.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to create my slide deck and generate it in the format that I want. I can export it, and then what I can do is, and again, nothing comes out of the Claude place. It then is populated into my Google Slides, which then are opened up. Now, once I went into the Google Slides, I checked. There was a few, so I'll just go through some of the issues that came up. Some of the video, some of the images I needed to adapt, change. They weren't suitable. Some of those needed to be changed, so I changed those. Tidied the slide deck, which you saw in that video. Then what I did do is I went and actually tweaked some of the images, as I said. Then I dropped in the logo because it was still missing the logo and some of the closing cards. Then what I did was I generated it in Google. I didn't go anywhere else. I didn't do it in sort of other places. I just went and generated the video there. I could have kept just the voice or audio, but I decided for the purpose of this, why not generate an AI avatar? So that's what I did. I could pick different ones. And that's kind of how I did that, because this is something new. So if you're doing kind of explainer videos, that type of thing, then I think it's a good, like I would say, those would be a good place to do that, right? So if you're walking through certain steps, why not? And then you publish the video, and then you obviously download it, and it's your kind of content. That's the final output. One step you'll change, one date. One thing perhaps you'll take away from these steps. So that was the process, exactly the process I went through in producing what we have here today. So it may, like I said, it may be different. It might be something that, we're creating, but I like to go through, have the sequence. Now what I'll also do is have the skill. It will become one of my ways of operating, right? So not only have I got the skill, but I can actually create this as a standard operating process for myself, right? So it serves a few roles, if you like, right? So if you want to recreate then I've got those steps. If I want to automate that, those steps are now in place and I would check them. So those are the ways I would be using it. I'm just going to pull out some questions if people have got questions. And for some people, they don't want to have an avatar. They actually rather be on camera, like Richard said. There may be opportunities for promotional content to put out. Does have an avatar do that? So it frees us up. We can have us on there. For sure, 11 Labs, I've done that also, where I've gone into 11 Labs and I've got some 11 Labs video generated, did a pretty good job. Even like a year ago, 2 years ago, it was still not as good, but now a lot of this can be done. So it might be whatever tool we use, still the content has to come from us and we still have to approve it and we still have to check through that content. So that's kind
Yeah.
of going through a few pointers, and that's how that clip was created, right? So I can obviously share that. And I think for some of you, perhaps you're doing that. I'm not sure, David, are you doing video content at the moment?
I'm just opening the book. So I haven't created any content yet, but what I'm trying to figure out is, as a newbie, what are the best tools to use to create those skills, and how can you do it with the minimum credits? Because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, how much is this going to cost doing all this experimentation? So instead of trial and error, where can I go? Can I create an agent that will do all this for me, or several agents that can communicate with each other to produce some of this stuff? Or my questions making any sense? I don't know.
They do. And what tool
Yeah.
what are you using at the moment?
What I've done is I've collected a bunch of things. I've got like AI Collective, I've got AI Talker, AI Office. I've got a bunch of these programs that I've been collecting, but I haven't used any of them yet. So that's why these steps. For example, I connected with this health products company, and it's a very unique product, and I want to start marketing it. But what I found is that education is a huge component of differentiating this product from other products that are out there. For example, to lower blood sugar, lower free radicals in the system, reduce inflammation. I mean, it's really a unique product. So what I'm trying to do is apply these things to get that product to market,
Right. So
if that makes any sense.
yeah, so you're affiliate marketer.
Yeah.
So what I would start with one tool, because often we can have so many and
Yeah.
test it out. Like try, use one tool. So whether you've used, Claude, and a lot of this we have access that there's no cost initially, right? So with Claude, so that's where I would start, if you're new to it, because we can have a lot of these tools, right? And then we end up using none.
Right.
So pick one and then, and remember 11 Labs, you can generate clips too, and it's free, right? 11 Labs, Notebook sorry, beg your pardon, NotebookLM.
NotebookLM. Okay.
Yeah. So you can
So
try, you can try.
is there any way to bypass the cut and paste function that I've seen used in the past? Is there a simplified version of that to embed different pieces of information or components into something that's going to generate content that produces results, if that makes sense?
I mean, there is. It's a case of what it is that you're trying to do, right?
Right.
Definitely plug and play. There's definitely tools out there that can do that. There's ways to connect tools that you can have, we don't need to kind of have these long prompts. We can have skills that are, that we can have in Claude, for example. So it all comes back to what it is that you're looking to do, right? So if you can
Right.
make that absolutely, so it came back to I serve these people. So what is the problem you're trying to solve? Or, if we can get to that and then start from there and then ask the tool. And if we're ever stuck, we ask the tool, how best would you, how could I solve this? How could I resolve this issue? And then we
Right.
can ask the tool to give us some some suggestions, whether we accept them or not, and we can test that out.
Okay, so as a total beginner, I mean, I'm on page 1. Should I use Claude to create and do research for me, or I'm really trying to start. What's the path that I should take, like an algorithmic path, if you will? Step 1, step 2. What you've given us this morning has been extremely helpful. I like the idea of the process, but how can I get this product into end users' hands? That's the bottom line
Right. So the product that
for
you've
what
got,
I'm trying to market and
yeah,
sell.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would look at I would go into Perplexity AI. I would do
Perplexity. Okay.
Perplexity AI. It's the research tool. I would
Okay.
then research, and I would also use Answer the Public. That's a great tool. You may have seen that one too in some of the
I
market.
missed that one, Bally.
Answer the Public.
Answer the public. Okay.
Yeah, it's a
Thank you.
great one also for marketing and really honing in. But I would definitely start with some research initially, because we could start running before we kind of have those steps in place, right? That tends to be the thing. And then I'd test it out. I would look at, what our budget is. Am I going to organically do this? All these different questions for sure, right?
Right.
But if you're working for a company, I would go to what's working for them. I'd go there. I'd start there also, right?
Well, the company basically hands you the product and says, now run with it. So
Right.
it consists of hops, acai berry, and cacao. And those are the 3 fundamental ingredients. And basically, it's for this growing population of diabetics in the United States. And it solves that problem. It gives you a GLP lifestyle without the injections. You can eat yourself into health, basically, with this product. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. So I've got some.
And I don't expect, yeah, I appreciate all the advice, and I'll follow up with Perplexity and
Yeah.
answer the public. Yeah,
Thank
that's a
you.
great start. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Anita just said, yeah, feel free to reach out to me. We can go through a series of sessions and we can work through.
Okay.
So it might be, yeah. So if you'd like to do that, would be great. So we had something from Richard. It's actually better if you let Claude build the deck via Gamma than copying a prompt. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's what I tend to do. Just build it and then it creates it in Gamma. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
that
Plus,
out.
you can merge your design from, you mentioned Claude Design. You could mention, yeah, your design style guide in that same Claude session so that it gets imported into or incorporated into the Gamma interactions. So you don't have to worry about picking and choosing templates and a lot of previously manual stuff in Gamma. It does it for you.
Yeah, that's great. Absolutely. Because you've already, once you have that, you can access it in one interface. Makes it so much easier. Before we were jumping between AI. I mean, I just know from jumping between one AI tool, then you jump to another AI tool now. And there's make.com and we were integrating. Now with it being seamless in one space, it does
Yeah.
make it that much
Right.
easier.
And then there's the fundamental aspect of AI is better talking to other AI than we are talking to AI, right? We know that ChatGPT 5.5 was built by ChatGPT 5. So, that's just about everything in that space is going to be written not by humans, but by AI. So it's behooves us to leverage that same principle.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you all for being here. I hope you found today helpful. And please share. There's one thing you'll take away from today. I hope you found it helpful. What would that be, and what will you put into play? So that will be the thing, right, for everybody. And please share next time what you're building, what it is that you're doing, and of course, when I just share when we'll be meeting next, will be in, let's see, on the 19th. Hopefully you can see my slide deck here, where this is when we'll be meeting on the 19th at 11 a.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. UK. It'd be great to book your calendar, put that in there. I look forward to seeing you then. Feel free to reach out with questions. Look forward to seeing what you're creating. And feel free to share if you, and thank you again for being here and sharing your process with us. Thank you. See you all in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bally. It was great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Brilliant as usual. All good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I'll catch up with you separately and we can finish that other conversation. Yeah.
Sure, let's do that. Thanks,
All
Ivan.
right.
Bye now.
Bye.